You just heard. I'm also going to talk about failure next in a couple of months in this event. So let me start with success. And for all of us, success is exciting. I'm sure it is for everyone around the world. I remember when success gave me a lot of energy. It pushed me, it gave me momentum, and it gave me a lot of direction as to which side I need to go, which side the success lies. It made my long days very, very meaningful. It made my sacrifices feel justified. And most importantly, it gave me a sense of accomplishment like anybody else. I knew what I was working towards. And I also knew what was my next milestone. And every small win it felt like a proof that I am moving forward. And that word proof mattered more than I realized at that time. Because early in our careers, success is all about proving often, proving that we belong, proving that we are very capable, and proving that we are worthy. More than that, proving that we are very powerful. So, proving is not permanent. And then quietly something changed. Something really changed for me. The same things that motivated me once, I started feeling very heavy. Nothing wrong, nothing dramatic, but very heavier. The emails, the long meetings, and every win. When that shift happened, I didn't question the success. I didn't. I actually questioned myself. Maybe I need more discipline. Maybe I'm not clearly focused. I need more focus. Maybe I just need to push myself harder. It's very common for people to think like that, and I question myself in this manner because that's what a lot of success people do. I've seen them, I have heard about it. I'm sure you must have as well, that you have to push yourself harder. But somewhere along the way, a strange question began to surface for me. Why does this success has to feel so harder, even when things are going so very well? Why should it be harder? There was a phase in my life when, on paper, everything was perfect, everything was looking right. I was progressing very, very well, taking on bigger responsibilities, being trusted with more. I was being told, Nagesh, you are on the right track. I had worked towards that promotion for long years because back then, success meant progression to me. It meant moving higher, moving up. It also meant taking on more responsibility, more recognition, and more visibility. Success meant proving that I'm growing, and promotion symbolizes all of that. You agree with me? I still remember walking to that new office for the very first time. A bigger desk, high back chair, my name neatly printed on the fresh plate outside the door. There was an email of announcement. Congratulatory messages flowed in. People stopped by my office to tell me that I deserved it well. But for a few weeks, I felt I have arrived. But excitement faded faster than I expected. I would sit in the same chair, looking outside the same window, and quietly wonder why the feeling didn't match the achievement. Because in my imagination, success just came with a title. In my imagination, it came with certainty, with lasting confidence, with sense of arrival. I believed that once I reached a milestone, something inside me would settle. But it didn't. The chair was bigger, the title was different, it was the same me. with same doubts, same responsibility, and same human limits. Nothing was wrong. In fact, everything was right. And that's what confused me. Because when nothing is wrong, everything feels sane, it's harder to explain. And that's when I began to see something I never questioned before. I had evolved, but my definition of success hadn't. We evolve, our success often doesn't. In my career, ambition began climbing. It meant being seen, being recognized, being ahead. It was about proof. But over time, something inside me changed. Ambition began to mean protecting my health, being present with my relationships, being getting deeper and more meaningful into work. At some point, ambition stopped, or I would say, it stops being about proof. It starts being about expression, expression of values, expression of depth, expression of who you have become. And my ambition hadn't weakened, I had matured. But my definition of success was still tied to proving, even though my ambition had shifted towards expressing myself. And that's where the tension began. I realized I had assumed success was permanent. I had defined it once early in my career, and I was still living by that definition, even though I was no longer that person. And that made me ask a different question. What if success isn't permanent? What if success has an expiry date? Not because it was wrong, but it because it was no longer serving the same person who created that definition. When I kept trying to live by that old definition of success, I didn't notice the cost immediately. At first, it felt like pressure. I felt the need to prove that I deserved promotion, to justify the title, to show that I can handle more. So I took on more projects, more responsibility, and being more available. I stayed later. I responded faster. I said yes more often than I should have. And slowly, something shifted. I started waking up tired. Wins didn't feel like wins anymore. They felt like checkpoints. I stopped celebrating. I started defending instead. I wasn't enjoying my success. I was trying to maintain it. And that was very exhausting, very, very exhausting. Because I wasn't just working hard, I was trying to recreate a version of success that belonged to the earlier version of me. And that's when I realized chasing yesterday's wins is today's exhaustion. For a very long time, I thought exhaustion was my weakness. So, like anybody else, I tried to fix myself. Maybe more discipline, better routines, more optimization. But exhaustion didn't go away. And that's what I eventually understood. Burnout isn't always lack of resilience. Sometimes it is misapplied resilience. It is enduring in the wrong direction for too very long time. It is pushing yourself forward when you really need to update your destination. And exhaustion followed me home. It became shorter with people. I was less patient, more reactive. Recognition for me became an ego. Confidence became arrogance. I wasn't just tired, I was becoming somebody I myself didn't recognize. And that scared me. That's when I really understood that my exhaustion was trying to tell me that Burnout is the proof that your definition of success is outdated. And here is something that I wish somebody had told me earlier. Burnout is always not a weakness. Sometimes burnout is intelligence. It's your mind and body signaling that strategy that you had worked upon once no longer aligns to what you have become. It's a very strong feedback, a feedback that says the version of success has run its course. But instead of listening, most of us double down. More grit, more endurance, when what we may need is awareness. And if I'm honest, the hardest part wasn't recognizing this for me. The hardest part was fearing of redefining the success. If I slow down, will I become irrelevant? If I change my pace, will people think that I have lost my ambition? If I stop chasing my next milestone, will I ask myself, who am I? For years, success had been my identity. Letting go of that version, I felt was like a betrayal. But growth doesn't betray who we were, it builds on it. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to update your definition of success before it updates you through your exhaustion. Success isn't permanent, it is seasonal. And there are seasons in our career, there are seasons in our ambitions, there are seasons in our lives. And each season asks us for a different version of success. Let me give you a few. There is a season of ambition where we build. I call it as a growth season. You say yes, you stretch yourself, you learn fast, you move quickly. And in this season, speed makes sense, visibility makes sense, relentless efforts make sense. Leaning in, experimenting, building capacity, taking risks are many actions in this season. But this season is not meant to last forever. Many move into the next season very quickly. And I call that season as expansion season. This is where success moves from proving yourself to carrying responsibility. You lead more, you influence more, you decide more. You build systems, either for yourself or others or in your team. You develop people and you delegate. And then comes a season where your ambition matures. Success becomes health instead of hustle, presence instead of performance, and I would say meaning instead of momentum. Saying no often, protecting your energy, choosing depth over speed, and redefining your enough. And if you use growth season strategies in a depth seasons of life, you burn out. And last one for you is when we set a season of reset, where success look like healing, creating clarity, and possibly recalibration. You pause, you reflect, you release unwanted, and you rebuild in this season. It looks very impressive. Sometimes for some, it is not impressive, but it is an essential season to have. So, ladies and gentlemen, we don't fail at success. We forget to update it. So, for the real question isn't, am I successful? Very common question in most minds. But perhaps the real question is, what season am I in? Have I updated my definition of success to match it? Are we evolving? Because we evolve, and our success must also evolve with this. Thank you.